David Arnold Meierhoff. I was a engineman for, third class, E4. I graduated from high school in 1964 in May. I was 17 and a half, and I couldn't, nobody would hire me for a good job because of insurance. You had to be 18 to be covered by the corporate insurance. So I didn't want to, I'd worked all through school, but it was menial jobs, and I wanted to do something else. So I went ahead, 10 days after graduating from high school is when I enlisted in the Navy. I had an uncle that was in the Navy as the Chief Airedale, and he sort of inspired me. I always looked up to him, and so that was sort of my thought process. Couldn't work, get a good job, going to have to go to the service sooner or later, so I went ahead and enlisted in the Navy. And I live in Emporia, Kansas, and they indoctrinated us in Kansas City. And went up there on a Sunday, and there was about 150 of us, and they flew us from there to the Great Lakes, and Sunday night we hit the naval base, and it all started right there. So the first 2 or 3 days I wondered what the heck I'd done. I made a mistake here, but after getting in about the 4th day, you sort of understood the discipline, what was going on, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a long days, and you had a lot of classroom. You had a heck of a time staying awake, but I mean, there was a lot of discipline and yelling and hollering at you, but it was all for the cause. That you knew when you got out that it wasn't going to be that way. It's going to be totally different. So, because we pulled in there like at 10:30 at night, and 2 bus loads from the O'Hare Airport, and 10:30 at night, you had your civilian clothes on, and as soon as those bus doors opened up, they were screaming and yelling to get in line and formation, and you know, get rid of those cigarettes. And then the next morning they got you up at 4 o'clock. We got to bed about at midnight, got you up at 4, slept in bunk beds in a Quonset hut, and you were still in your civilian clothes, and you brought, you know, your toiletries and whatnot. You didn't need any of that. They gave you about an hour to think about either you're going to donate it to the Salvation Army, or you can pay to box it up and ship it back home, and then you started getting your Navy issue. And like I said, about after the 3rd day, you was assigned a company commander. We had a first class boatswain mate, Marvin Tweedy was his name, and he was somewhat strict and disciplinarian, but not as much as when we first pulled in the first 24 to 48 hours. So I didn't have any problems getting structure, but I think it was just getting in the idea of hey, there's a thing you're going to do it at a certain time, a certain way that you had to do it. That was their way, not your way. And it was just understanding that that's what you had to do, is what they told you. If you did that, you weren't going to have any problems. And there was a lot of guys that struggled with that didn't like to be under close supervision and have a structured environment. And I really didn't have a whole lot of problems, because I was always a pretty structured individual and liked to sort of think out and plan out what I was going to do. And of course they did all the planning for you and all the thinking. You just had to follow the plan, and you didn't have any problems at all. Most of them were Kansas and Missouri. I joined on what they call the kiddie cruiser plan. That's if you join before you're 18, you get out the day before you're 21. And I was 17 and a half, and I joined on the buddy plan with a high school buddy that I'd ran around with the last couple of years. And so we joined together, and after about a week to 10 days, I realized he wasn't as good a buddy as I thought he was, because he couldn't conform. He had to sort of smooth up the leaders to keep from getting discipline and whatnot, and so we sort of parted, but parted our thinking as real good buddies. We're still friends, but not as close as we were, and but most of them were from Kansas City, the Kansas area, Missouri. When it was in, we had 90 people in our company, and so we were Company 253 with Marvin Tweedy as our company commander at that time. And I'll never forget when we graduated. Of course, you had to call him sir the entire 13 weeks. And when we graduated, we went through. He went at the end of the line and shook our hands, and we called him sir. And he said, no, he said, it's Boatswain Tweedy now. He said, you're in the real Navy now.